Out of nowhere, Bianca Belair won the WWE Women's Championship, and out of nowhere, she was cashed in on by Iyo Sky. We're going to talk about it and what is next for Bianca Belair on today's episode of WrstlXtra. Stay tuned.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my trios team, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. Yeah. And, of course, the professor that is Gerard Bonner. The fastest, toughest, the quickest, the longest, and now the shortest. Bianca Belair. An amazing performance at SummerSlam came to a crushing end in just a matter of 1 minute and 38 seconds. Let's get into the triple threat match that was at SummerSlam for the WWE Women's Championship. Asuka, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair. Gerard, talk me through this match. What went down and what are we about to talk about?
Well, the match itself was pretty crazy. I mean, it was billed as one of the 4 main events at SummerSlam, which is another topic in and of itself. How does one have 4 main events? Anyway, as perhaps probably the most high-profile women's match on this card, you know, these 3 women, they gave it to us. And it was kind of hard to figure out who would be a favorite going in. Admittedly, I somehow did not think that Bianca Belair would win the women's championship. It's nothing against her. It just felt like, I'm not sure that it's going to happen. Then there was this injury that happened during the match, which made me very, very concerned, but she powered through, came back, and what a creative finish. Here it is. Asuka has Charlotte in the figure, well, actually Charlotte has Asuka in the figure 4, figure 8, something like that. And then it turns into a small package where Bianca cradles the champion, and now we have a new women's champion. And before she could get to her feet and that one leg that was hobbled and not feeling so hot, here comes the familiar music of Iyo Sky, the same music who ironically last year at SummerSlam showed up at the end of a Bianca title win. Then it was to form Damage Control. Now it is to cash in to become the new women's champion. And a quick moonsault later, we're celebrating again as Iyo Sky is the new women's champion. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Even further to the connection of Iyo Sky coming into WWE as part of Damage Control last year's SummerSlam after a Bianca Belair match. As I said, so we know that Bianca Belair is is credited as the longest reigning women's champion of the modern era. She beat Iyo Sky in order to beat Becky Lynch's record. Very interesting. But then it was Iyo Sky that then beat Bianca to give Bianca the new record, or another record, should I say, of the shortest women's championship reign of the modern era, or probably ever. Not modern era, probably ever. As I said, 1 minute, 38 seconds to be precise. Mex, how did you feel when you saw, 1, Bianca Belair starting to hobble away from the ring, 2, when she returned, 3, when she actually won that championship?
I was terrified when she hobbled away from the ring. That the body drop by Charlotte over the top rope, and obviously she slammed it. Obviously she was holding her knee, so I was thinking, yeah, something here doesn't quite add up. But her hand on the step when she made the sound, like everyone that we were sitting watching together jumped up, was like, whoa. And it's like you're watching it in the TV, but everyone's like trying to look through the TV to look over the ring to see if she's okay. Like, and it looked pretty seriously. They worked us all. They've done a great job with that, and made it look all legitimate and stuff. Then as she was being taken out and she kept looking back, we were like, okay, like she's surely gonna come back. She's coming back, and then she still sold the part of on one leg, hobbling back in, and like Gerard said, everything that happened with the finish. I think the finish was incredible, very creative. It was Charlotte that obviously had just got blue misted in that position of figure eight, had Bianca in the figure eight, and then when Asuka went for the kick, that's when Bianca ducked her and rolled her off.
There it is.
Yeah, very, very nice. But then obviously, and again, like Gerard said, I didn't expect Bianca at all to be and have a horse in this race. I thought, Charlotte wins was obviously always an option. But I thought Asuka would retain here. But I did think, and it's funny, I think I said last week that Iyo Sky is going to cost Bianca's opportunity in this match. And I thought they would then spiral off into their own feud, not knowing that they were actually going to give the title to Bianca, and then Iyo gets one on her, because again, like Gerard's mentioned, the symmetry between SummerSlam last year when I think the Damage Control came after the Becky and Bianca stuff. So there was this was very good. This was between this and maybe the Gunther Drew match, probably match of the night. Didn't see what they were gonna do here with the women's stuff, but they were very creative, like I say. But yeah, it just makes me think, what's next? What's next for Bianca, especially like?
And that's the big question. Going back to how it all ended, as you both were, I was very, very surprised when Bianca won. I was ready to be like, start looking for the images and post, in the black gold post with Bianca there with the championship, and then 2 minutes later, my first thought was, oh my God. The black wrestling fans are gonna murder WWE for again having Bianca lose very quickly. Actually, to be fair, I'm actually quite surprised it wasn't as bad as I've seen. So because it was Iyo Sky, because it was a cash-in, Money in the Bank, we're used to the cash-in, Money in the Bank being the way it is. Someone cashing in on someone who's just been damaged and probably had a very difficult match, and then kind of can't move, and boom, obviously they seize their opportunity. So I'm glad to see that most people were actually just simply happy for Iyo Sky and not necessarily enraged by another short Bianca match or whatever it is. Obviously, I'm also talking about the time when she lost to Becky Lynch within like 22 seconds. So I didn't know what to think about. I just didn't know what to do. But at the same time, when I look back, when I think about it, I'm like, this is what this whole Money in the Bank thing is about. This is exactly what it's all about. This was perfect in how they did it. Again, still wasn't expecting it to Bianca that would be the one who got defeated, but I was waiting for Iyo Sky to come out at some point eventually after at the end of the match or something like that. Mex asks the question, and the question on everyone's lips is, what's next for Bianca Belair? How does she come out of this? Now, she's got a damaged knee. That might mean she's away for a few weeks. If and when she comes back, how is she going to feel? What's her attitude going to be? We have said this probably from the first ever WrstlXtra episode up until now. We are waiting for some type of dramatic character change or something like that for Bianca Belair. Is this the final nail in the coffin to give us all of that, Gerard? What are you thinking?
Absolutely, positively not. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. If you noticed, well, there's two things. One, after the SummerSlam Slim Jim Battle Royal, there was a commercial played. And the commercial for Slim Jim featured one LA Knight, and it featured Bianca Belair. Then when this match started for the triple threat, Bianca Belair did something we've never seen her do. She walked out, and instead of her ponytail in hand, she had a C4 drink that she posed so beautifully with. So what's happening with Bianca? She is in the land of endorsements. And where Bianca is right now, they called her John Cena back in April or so, because of that match she had with Iyo, and man, she's big match John, so to speak, big match Bianca. Here was the John Cena problem when everybody wanted to turn him heel. He made everybody too much money as a wonderful person to turn him heel. This is the Bianca Belair issue. And it's a good issue to have. When you have these kinds of endorsements, you're not turning back. You might get slightly more aggressive. You might say, I've had all I can stand, but I can't stand no more. But you aren't turning from, wearing mean colors. You're not getting dark eyeliner. You're not going to use a bunch of 4-letter words. These things shall not be for the woman known as Belair. So what's next for Bianca? Oh, she's not turning at all. She's going to have a great program, perhaps with Iyo Sky, but I got a real hot take for you. Are you ready for this?
Go for it.
Bianca Belair has surpassed the Women's Championship. She is at the space now where she no longer needs to be Women's Champion to be a star. She has proven that matter of fact, she's done what Charlotte didn't do and what none of the other women's faces of the WWE have done. Transferred and really moved into the mainstream space. All of these endorsements, all of these interviews, these covers, all of these things, Charlotte didn't do it. Bayley didn't do it. Sasha didn't do it. Becky didn't do it. It's Bianca Belair. So right now, she doesn't need the women's title. She can do what she wants.
We talk about the comparison to John Cena. And we had this whole time when John Cena was a face, he was winning everything here, there, and everywhere, but then the crowd kind of turned on him. It didn't change the trajectory of what the WWE did with him, but that's what happened. We saw that for the likes of a Roman Reigns at some point, when he was the biggest dog in the yard, all of that. We've kind of seen a very similar thing with Charlotte Flair, although she was a heel probably most of her time because of her consistent winning and all that kind of stuff. The crowd have turned, don't really want to see Charlotte winning all the time. Max, do you think that this is going to happen with Bianca Belair when it comes to the fans and how she is perceived?
It very well could. I don't think Saturday wasn't an example of it. I think for the mere fact Charlotte was in the match. And Charlotte is the de facto, let's put the belt on her. And to be honest, some people I was watching this match with thought exactly what happened to Bianca, they would have done to Charlotte so that she gets another notch closer to the 16 world titles.
Yes.
However, they've done it with Bianca. But I do think Bianca's going to struggle in, these kind of showcase matches, if she has matches away from the title and stuff like that, because it will be like, lol, Bianca wins. But even with the John Cena comparison, one thing that, people would boo John Cena, want him to turn heel, weren't interested with him. It was very bubblegum and for the kids and stuff like that. He comes out, his music hits, John Cena sucks and the rest of it. But the minute John Cena's match began, you were behind Cena because he was just that guy, not to say he's the best wrestler in the world, but he, it was just the story coming from underneath always, the 5 moves of death. You just knew what you were getting. And I feel that's the same with Bianca. Like, people may not they may not want her to win. They're just bored. They want something different and all of that kind of stuff. But once she gets going, like the whole sell job of hobbling to the top rope to do a 450, get out of here, man. She hit that 450. Like, that's the best she's hit. And she's tended to be injured. Like, perfectly landed on Charlotte. Like, she's just phenomenal in her talent. So it's just one of those things, like, you can try not to like her. She'll bring you back in the same way, like I say, John Cena always would bring you back in. But it will begin to get difficult for her if they don't kind of, I don't know if it's a case of slowing her down a bit or just giving her kind of different things to do. But yeah, I wanted to argue with Gerard's point. Brings a very good point in regards to the endorsement side of things and where she's being placed in the company to do those bits, which are obviously very key for WWE, more so than wrestling and stuff, as we know. But I just felt with the story leading into this, in terms of the difficulty she had in getting her rematch in the first place, you know, then when she did, Charlotte jumped in, and these were all in each other's way. And now she actually won the title in this match where probably no one expected her to win it. Iyo Sky cashes in and takes it. I just feel like this is the time, and maybe it's not a heel turn, and we'll go on to talk about street profits, but just something that it just snaps, and it's just like, I'm not taking this anymore. Like, this is nonsense. Like, I shouldn't have even been in this match, because I should have just got my rematch clean when I asked for it. Like,
right.
I feel like, though I understand the business side of it, and you know, kissing kids and being a role model, listen, I need that higher level of stuff, because I'm not one of the kids she's kissing, so I don't care about all the role model stuff. I need the entertainment level stuff, and I feel like even if it's not going to be a whole heel turn because she has no obligations, we just need a something needs to go off. Like, yeah, this is how Money in the Bank works, like you rightly said, but it's like, I've had enough. Like, I've just had enough.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. So you know, we talk about this whole her journey to this last match and all the rest of it, and it being so difficult. She didn't need to jump through so many hoops and whatever else. And I would never, again, given the point that Gerard made as well, I would never expect it for Bianca to have a full-on heel turn anytime soon, or probably ever at all now. But at the same time, there is still this cookie cutter thing that just has been, I guess it's just carried on for too long. It's not that it's a problem necessarily, it's just carried on for too long, and we've seen no real change, and we just want something different. And the issue I have with this whole Bianca Belair and how her time on the main roster has been, is that all her stories seem to play out almost the exact same way. So she faces some difficulty. You know, it took her however long to get a match with Bayley, and then she had to beat her 2 or 3 times, and then you've got the Becky thing and blah blah blah. And it seems like, oh, we're gonna get something different here, but it never does. We always get a great match, but everything leading up to it is kind of like mediocre at best. And I feel as though, and we're going to talk about this whole thing now, like, back when we had the Hurt Business, they started out as a heel faction, but then they just carried on doing their thing, and people loved them, but they still had that mean streak, even though they respectively became faces, but they still had that mean streak. There is no reason why that can't happen if Bianca now joins Bobby and the Street Profits. Gerard, I know he's going to say something, so go for it.
Well, there's a few things on my brain with this. For one, I definitely think it is possible for her, as I said, to gain a more aggressive side and still be loved by the fans. You know, Shayna Baszler might be the latest great example of this, that they intended for Shayna Baszler to be this monster that everybody would hate, but because her story was so relatable, how could you hate that? Right? I think the case with Bianca, and this is where some cultural things are going to fall into play. I think Bianca has a real challenge. She has a challenge that's different than the Hurt Business or the Street Profits and anyone else. And, you know, it is the angry Black person issue, right? As an angry Black man, which is still not preferred in a lot of places, but in a space of wrestling and combat sports, you can somewhat get away with it because it's a place to let out your aggression. The issue here is, where does the African-American woman have a space to let out her aggression? Does she get irritated? Yes, she gets irritated. But she always culturally and historically has to put on that face to be able to say, we're going to fix it. We're going to solve it. Now, behind closed doors, she might cuss and fuss, but when she gets out there, she's going to put that voice on and she's going to make it do what it does. Bianca Belair represents that. And one of the major issues that's happening right now is, how do you tell that story and still keep her likable to a larger audience that doesn't necessarily look like her? This is one of the real conundrums of pro wrestling that some folks don't want to acknowledge, but it is a very real thing. So I think there's an interesting line she ends up having to toe, where there are certain things that she might feel like saying that she probably can't say. Case in point, remember when Jade Cargill made her debut in AEW and then was confronted by Brandy, who had what many of us would call a cringeworthy moment, but if it weren't on TV, it's exactly how it would have happened in real life. So those are things that as African-American people in pro wrestling, you have to really deal with that other ethnicities don't have to deal with, which is one of the reasons we do this show, to help people become aware of it. So on one hand, it is easy for us to say, man, we just need her to be aggressive and so on and so forth. But how does that work? You know, Jazz was aggressive, but wasn't liked very much. Jacqueline was aggressive, but wasn't liked very much. And unfortunately, when people start talking about the greats in the business, they don't remember them, which is unfortunate. Bianca is in a position to do something that no other African-American woman before her has done, which is becoming the face of this company. Now that you're there, these are the challenges. This is why NXT Bianca can't work here. Because NXT Bianca wasn't being seen by as many people. You know what I mean? So because she wasn't, this is the challenge. Because she wasn't being seen by as many people, you can get away with that stuff. You can, and now it's like, yeah, oh my gosh. But that doesn't appeal to a larger audience who doesn't understand that space. So this is the real challenge. It's very nuanced. They can probably turn the notch up a little bit on her and let her be a little more aggressive. But that aggression really will probably only come in the ring and with one or two words they might add in a promo. But she can't go full, you know, she can't go full Montgomery and on them. She can't do that right now. Because if she does, it's going to be a problem. You understand what I'm saying?
You know what?
Heart, that's what she wants to do.
It's big facts, because even if any one of us are promoters, you're not going to change something that's working. It's tried and tested. It's worked for the best part of 3 years now on the main roster. You're not going to change it. It's an interesting conversation, because even as you were saying that, I was just thinking, okay, well, we've got Athena right now who is, you know, running roughshod somewhat, but does she get away with it, like you're saying, because of, you know, this isn't on TV, the Ring of Honor product, right? It's not on TV, or is it, or is the problem more so that will WWE, if they wanted to make that move with Bianca, they would make a misstep maybe because the right people aren't in the boardroom, and it become like very kind of ghetto fabulous kind of behavior, as opposed to, you know, just someone that is standing up for themselves a bit more.
Right. It's interesting because you know, we had this whole thing a few months ago when this whole there's a lawsuit that kind of came out with a former writer who's a black female of WWE, kind of opening the doors to some of the conversations that she was privy to or had to deal with, and some of the situations. And even Bianca Belair was vocal in some of the stuff where, you know, she was given certain lines to say and she didn't really want to do it, but then she found herself having to say it every single week and all this kind of stuff, and that was an issue. It's very, very interesting that we bring up the NXT Bianca and ROH current Athena as well. It worked, and it's working for Athena. But it is very interesting to think that would that actually work on main TV? ROH is seen by very few compared to your Raw and SmackDown. Athena's doing a perfect job. It doesn't even feel cringeworthy. It doesn't even feel like the angry black woman. It doesn't feel like that at all.
But that's what Bianca was in NXT. Whereas Athena was just an angry woman. Right. In NXT, Bianca was the angry black woman.
Black woman. Right.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And then we you know, we bring up the whole Brandy Jade situation. You know, we saw the reaction to that. Don't want that for Bianca. But the other person I thought of is someone who's actually returning to the ring as well. Another WWE legend is Alicia Fox. Now, Alicia Fox did, you know, first ever and only black or African American Divas champion. And she was kind of forgotten about until she became this crazy woman. People kind of then started, as much as some, you know, for the first few weeks, it probably felt a little bit cringy, maybe a little over the top, blah blah blah. But she made it her own, and then it kind of elevated her as well. Even to the point where she was the captain of the Raw Women's Survivor Series team, and she had a few other opportunities in between and all the rest of it. So it's a very fine line. And even I say with Alicia Fox as well, it wasn't necessarily the crazy black woman either. It was just the crazy woman. So there is, I can argue there is a way to do it, but then there's also no formula to say that if we do it a certain way, it's going to be correct or we're going to get it right. And difficult.
And the challenge is with all of the names that we mentioned, none of them were the literal face of their brand.
True.
None of them were moving merch the way that she has moved merch. So that's what complicates it even more. Athena absolutely is dominating right now. But here's the funny part. The part that most people talk about in that AEW ROH bubble would be Willow Nightingale. They talk about how happy-go-lucky and pleasant and kind and nothing against that. But it's like, it's almost trying to figure out what's palatable for people to be able to digest. Once you get into this realm of merch and sponsorships and endorsement, because what's crazy is 2 of the 3 major sponsors for SummerSlam had Bianca doing commercials for them. C4 and Slim Jim. That's a different level. So now we're operating with big money problems now, which is one of the reasons why, it's kind of like, and I hate to bring this up, but it's like the Obamas, they had to be squeaky clean, scandal free. Their kids couldn't do random stuff. Nobody was gonna, randomly take something from Starbucks and not pay for it. Like, there weren't gonna be these small random things that happened to them because they understood the weight of it. That, unfortunately, in America and around the world, is the weight that you carry as an African-American leader or star in a space like that. So she's having to carry it, and thankfully she's done exceptionally well.
Very, very interesting. Moving on just a little bit, only a little sidestep to the right. We have seen finally the conundrum all play out with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. On Friday Night SmackDown, the Street Profits decided that they would come out and attack both the Brawling Brutes and the OC during their scheduled match. Mex, every time I see this, I'm just gonna think of you every time now, because I'm just like, this is Mex's idea. This is Mex's fault. In a very good way. Angelo Dawkins has a fresh cut and a suit. I'm surprised. I'm shocked. Mex, talk me through that moment when you saw the Street Profits appear on Friday night and attack the OC and the Brawling Brutes.
Yeah, so was the match? I can't even remember now. Was the match even finished? I think the match had maybe just.
It wasn't
finished.
It
no,
wasn't finished. No.
Yeah, so these guys just stormed the ring. The highlight for me was Michael Cole. Docs is in a suit. And literally just handed these guys their ass, like beat them up and down the place. All of the regular Street Profits' greatest hits. Nothing unsavory, no weapons or anything like that, but cleared ring, stared down the barrel of that lens, that hard cam, and you could see something was different. But big cheers, and no one was doing, the likes of what's these guys called, the Club and them like that. They're not like, they're just there. They're not like over right now or anything. So no one was really super invested necessarily even in the match. But when these guys came out, it's like, one, we haven't seen them for a minute, and now it's like everything is slightly coming together from what we've been seeing in the last few weeks. And when they left the ring and Bobby came out, big pop for Bobby. Like, everyone was super happy to see Bobby, because it's like, it's been like passing ships with Bobby in the last year for him on SmackDown. And yeah, it's just like it's coming together. We still no closer to really knowing what these guys' arrangement is. But it's like Bobby had them under instruction. He was greeting them like, yeah, like you know, you kicked ass, you done a thing here. Like, so it's very interesting to see. Dorks is in a suit, which is incredible. Like I've seen this guy wear everything under the sun since he's been in NXT, apart from dress smart. So yeah, this or something. And I even saw people online were saying, "Oh, the sports jacket, the blazer was too small for him." I was like, "Give him a break. He's he's trying, all right." Like, but yeah, it was great, and it's literally just right. You're kind of now at the edge of your seat, right? Friday next week. What's next? What's the next step in this? So yeah, it was good stuff.
As you said, you know, we're kind of itching to find out what happens on Friday night, and the next chapter, or the next, I guess, the next page of this whole thing. We have no idea exactly what the arrangement is. Will there be more people to join? We don't even know what their name is, or the group's name. But I believe Gerard is rubbing off on me quite a lot, because I'm noticing all these small little details. And there are two words that I've heard from a good amount of people, or a couple of times. When Bobby Lashley saw Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams backstage, when the Street Profits actually came out on Friday night, something Wade Barrett said. What's something else that Bobby Lashley said in the backstage when they came out was, they look $1 million. I'm hoping or thinking that's either going to be the moniker, or the little slogan, or that's going to be the name. We're stepping away, thankfully, from it being, you know, Hurt Business or any kind of Hurt Business 2.0 or whatever. But Gerard, what are you thinking in terms of the way this goes? We also talked about, you know, Trick and Melo, who were broken up on NXT as well. How do you think that may play into all of this? Will it play into it at all? What's your thoughts?
I definitely think, first of all, hashtag Black Rabbit, because that's what's happening here. We're getting all of these clues and nobody's saying anything, you know, and I'm loving it. If they drop any sort of QR code, I'm going to literally go through the roof. It's going to be insane. I love this. And the ambiguity makes it more fun. Right. I can't tell if Lashley's just serving now in a managerial role, if he's an advisor, if he's going to get back in the ring. And I don't think that it's coincidental that, you know, last week, Trick Williams said, hey, I got to go be my own man. You know, that could move into a lot of areas. Him joining, you know, obviously him getting some reps under him in NXT is never a bad thing on his own. He's clearly a star, as you know, when they were out at SummerSlam weekend, he's the first face you see, you know, for the Performance Center tryouts. Like, clearly this guy has got star power. You put him in that space with, you know, the Street Profits and with Lashley, he's definitely not considered a sidekick at that point. And I don't think that when Lashley a couple of weeks ago was talking to the Street Profits and he said, hey, Trick and Melo speak highly of you, that wasn't random. There was great intent for that. And so I think we're going to see one or both of them at some point involved, you know, in this space, because they both certainly carry that brand of $1 million. And I think that's the thing. So I think we're going to see something. Will they do some crossover things into NXT? That would be amazing. I mean, if the Judgment Day is doing it, why can't this group do it? So I think this makes for very interesting TV where you can't figure out where it's going to go, but you can tell it's going somewhere. I love to see this.
I think that's the perfect way to see this as well. That's why it's working so well. Is we don't know exactly where it's going, but we know it's going somewhere we want it to go, or there are so many different ways it can go, and we will still be very, very happy with it. Yes. Mex, talk me through this whole thing with Melo, Trick, how it all kind of happened on NXT last week, and what do you think happens with Trick Williams more so than Carmelo?
So they were backstage. I think it was pretty much early on in the show, maybe to even open the broadcast. And they were just kind of debriefing after, the win from from Carmelo Hayes at the pay-per-view, Great American Bash. And Trick said, look, you beat him, blah, blah, blah. I still want, my pound of flesh effectively. And Carmelo Hayes was like, we're done with him. It's over. And he said, no, like, you're done with him. Respectfully, we're always going to be Trick Mello gang, but I need to go off and be my own man. I need to go slay the dragon. He needs to go and beat up Dragunov. This is what he's on. And yeah, it was kind of like that moment. I remember like back in the day, like akin to like I think a Keenan and Kel, when I think it was Keenan that was moving away from home. It was like, these guys, man, and like they went there. It's like mutual respect. Like it may not even be like they're over. It could be like, Big E coming to the realization that he needs to do more within the New Day, that kind of thing. And like Trick went off, and I guess went to kind of start. I think it was later on in the show we saw him call out Dragunov from the ring, and obviously Carmelo then went off into doing some other things. I think the tag team match on the night. I don't know, especially in terms of Bobby's faction. It's like, who ends up there first? I would like to think it's Carmelo Hayes, because it's like Trick has literally just said, I want to go off and be my own man. So to go find yourself in a faction doesn't make sense. But WWE generally doesn't make sense. So that's something else. But I think Carmelo is a very smart place to put him. Say he dropped the title, could go up to the main roster. He's immediately in a gang. He's immediately got, goons behind him. And it's like, we're protecting this guy because he doesn't need to be overexposed on the main roster right now. Big talent, but he's got years ahead of him. He may have to still kind of learn how main roster do certain things. He's around, people that he can easily relate to, the Street Profits, Bobby Lashley, veterans that could basically hold his hand, although, he doesn't necessarily need his hand holding, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just a very safe place to put him. Without him getting lost in the quote unquote shuffle. So I'd like to think it's Carmelo that'll go up there and he can have, stand out great matches outside of the faction and stuff. But yeah, I think Trick Williams, there's something there. There's definitely something there. He's a big character. Obviously, we saw him using the at the tryouts at SummerSlam as well. Someone that's, we would probably argue, is probably spending more time in NXT now, or made this move away from Carmelo Hayes to probably get more reps in himself. They're inviting him here to be looking over people at the tryouts. So very interesting what they see in him. And, tryouts is for everything. He may be there like looking at the promo classes or something, more, up his street. So I want to see what this Trick Williams singles run looks like. And ideally, I would want it to have some level of success to it. Not necessarily a belt if we're not going that way, but some really, good high profile wins. Because then if he was to go and join these guys in the faction anyway, afterwards, it wouldn't feel like, he's failed and it's like, oh, let's put him in the faction anyway. It's like, right, this is someone that we're now adding, and it's like a bonus, like, oh my God, they've got Trick Williams now as well, sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting how they book this, but I can't lie, Dragunov is going to kill him. Having said all of that, if the first obstacle is Dragunov, sorry. But it's supposed to be. Wow. Dragunov is supposed to kill him, and then he can rebuild from there. It's part of the story. Trust me.
Yeah. Wow.
I guess so. I mean, that threw me, bro.
It's so unpredictable around here.
I actually feel the same way. Like, I'm like, oh my word, Trick has to go against Dragunov. But here's the thing. I was saying that about Carmelo Hayes as well. When their match was about to happen, I'm like, Carmelo's about to get cooked. But he didn't. It was a way to show the other side of him. So maybe, or hopefully, this will be a way for us to see another layer to Trick Williams. We've not seen a lot of him in the ring, of course. Every now and again, we've seen it, and he's done well. There's nothing outstanding necessarily, but no one's looked at it and thought, all right, he's not ready. So maybe this will help. I don't see him beating Dragunov at all, but at the same time, you know, we'll get. I believe we'll get one of those performances which makes us say, "Oh, okay, this is Trick Williams."
I
in
don't
terms,
just add, yeah. I don't mind. I might even prefer it if it's like a complete squash, like I say, Dragunov kills him, because Dragunov he did somewhat dominate Carmelo Hayes, but Carmelo Hayes still, you know, got what he needed to get in. He's the NXT champion. The same story with what's my man's name? Bron Breakker. They had a fairly competitive match, but that's a former NXT champion. He had a fairly competitive match against Dijak and beat him, but Dijak's a big, aggressive guy. That's his character. You see what I mean? Trick Williams is a man that is literally just stepping away from, I guess, the guy, and he's trying to find his own way. And we haven't really seen much of him in singles capacity generally. And when we have, it's been a bit tongue-in-cheek, Muhammad Ali coming with all that stuff. Like, Dragunov is supposed to beat him up, and then Trick is meant to have the crisis of confidence, like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen to me. Can I manage on my own as my own man without Carmelo? Like, and then we're on our way, and Trick goes from there. Like, but he has to hit rock bottom, and I don't think they're doing it. If he doesn't, not that if he doesn't, but if Dragunov has like a struggle to beat Trick Williams, I'm not sure if that's great for Dragunov and his aura, because people are already saying Dragunov is the man to beat Gunther for the IC title.
Right.
So yeah, I just think we could do two good things here rather than make Trick Williams look great from here, because then it's like, okay, where does he go from there? He's kind of just got to go for the, you know, North American black people title, and yeah, like, let him struggle a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. And you know what? As much as you said earlier about it may not make much sense if we see Trick kind of turn up with Bobby and the Street Profits in the next week or two. This would still be a good way to. This would still be a way to do it. If he does this whole "I need to be my own man," blah blah blah, and then gets cooked, and is like, "Oh, maybe that was a bad idea. Let me go and join Bobby and the Street Profits." You know what I mean? It would make sense to me. It wouldn't feel silly or too quick. In terms of that whole thing as well, like for me, in terms of whether it be Trick or Melo that joins the group first, I think I would actually rather Trick join the group first. I think as safe as it would be for Carmelo to be part of the group in terms of coming up to the main roster, and exactly what you said about, you know, being taught by the veterans, holding his hand up through the whole process kind of thing. I think with Trick, because of the way he is, because he's not renowned for necessarily his wrestling ability, for him to be there and be like, you got the crazy guy, like almost like the X-Pac of DX, or you know what I mean, or the Butcher of the Brawling Brutes, and you know what I mean, that kind of little crazy one that can't keep still and can't be quiet. And but I think Trick would be perfect for that. Whereas for me, Carmelo, it would feel as though Carmelo would have to come in as the high-profile singles guy, and then it may diminish the Street Profits and what they're trying to do in being part of this group. So maybe not straight away. Maybe the Street Profits needs to do whatever they got to do in the tag team division again, or show us this new attitude a little bit more, and then we're backing them, and then Carmelo comes in, and then with Trick, there's no big expectation, so you can kind of just do whatever, and then those guys, obviously, Street Profits can kind of elevate themselves.
I think Carmelo should be like the Randy Orton of Evolution. Like, and they sing his praises, and this is going to be the next guy, everyone. Turn it on right now. You're watching the next guy, as they used to do for Randy Orton before, obviously, things went sour. That's how they should treat Carmelo once he gets there, if he gets there.
To move on a little bit, we go to Collision. AEW Collision, we saw Ricky Starks take on CM Punk for the Real World Championship. They're actually calling that on commentary and on the show. I don't understand. But anyway, that happened. The legend that is the Dragon Ricky Steamboat was the guest referee, even though he was outside of the ring the whole time. So I don't know whether he was the referee or the enforcer. I'm not too sure. I heard referee. I'm not sure about anyone else. But he did have to eventually get involved as the referee got knocked out. And he did, was the guy to make the decision in the end. Pushing Ricky Starks' feet off the ropes after he tried to use the ropes to pin CM Punk. And then CM Punk got the win over Ricky Starks. Gerard, what was your thoughts during this match? How do you feel about the position Ricky Starks is in? And where does he go from here?
So it's interesting. I think coming into it, I don't know that anybody actually thought that Ricky Starks would actually win the Real World's Championship. I don't, particularly after he won the Owen Hart tournament by beating CM Punk. There's no way you're going to get 2 one-on-one wins against CM Punk in high-profile matches in 4 weeks' time. That's just not happening, right? But what I do think happened in this is, particularly after Ricky Starks beat the brakes off of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, like whipped him like he stole something, I sat back and I said, Ricky Starks didn't lose anything here, which is what I think ends up being the win for him, right? Because after he lost the world title match to MJF, it was clear after that, like he just was kind of, fading off into the sunset somewhere. But it really feels like right now, Collision is being heavily built with CM Punk as the monster face, and the number one heel on Collision right now is Ricky Starks. And there's a lot to be said for that. The match felt big, even though the title doesn't mean anything. Sorry, AEW, but it doesn't. And so I think, and they did everything to make the match feel big. Ricky Steamboat, JR getting back on the mic to do the call, like all of the things to make it feel big, but it's not a real world title. So there's that. But with all of that said, I actually think I was pleasantly surprised that by the time this thing went off the air, the whipping of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat meant more than Starks losing that title match. So it gave Starks somewhere to go, builds him as a monster heel. He lost nothing in all of this. So I'm actually very, very pleased with where Ricky Starks is right now. And it seems like there's at least a path for him.
So I guess as well with this whole thing, what transpired after the match with Ricky Starks whipping the Dragon Steamboat, we get this full heel turn that we were kind of like, okay, is it happening? Is it not? And it's now like there's no question about it. You can't do something like that and still kind of be tweener. That's just not happening. Not the the most likable guy in wrestling history and blah blah blah, and then you still kind of come out and you're a tweener. What I'm intrigued about is how he'll be received by the crowd the next time he appears. He's loved by the crowd, regardless of how, obviously we've seen the last few weeks, as I said, kind of teetering on this whole heel thing. He's been saying heel stuff. He's been doing heel stuff, but he's being received like he is the face of the company, the face of Collision in his own words as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when he does appear again on Saturday. Mex, give me just like your thought on this whole thing with Ricky Starks. And how, where do we go from here? We've got All In coming up. We've got a few things coming up. Does this whole thing with CM Punk carry on? Does he stay high profile for a long time? Or does he move on to something else in the coming weeks?
I mean, I'm going to be cheeky and say again that I don't know why Ricky Starks is fighting for a title that he knows is not the real one. But that's neither here or there. That hasn't been addressed. Neither do I know why the real world champion hasn't come and questioned all of this. But I digress. Ricky Starks is doing some great stuff right now. They're using him just how he should be used. I'm quite surprised they've made him such a pivotal point of Collision, like we're saying, like the biggest heel on the show. But I guess we have, and I think we do have some thanks towards CM Punk for that, because CM Punk has always spoken highly since he's come in the door of working with Ricky Starks and stuff like that. So, Ricky has been kind of, helped into this position, and he's showing that he deserves to be here. I do wish somewhat the roles are reversed. and it's not like we're forcing Ricky to be hated. But like you said, we've arrived at this point now. He's done something despicable, and like Gerard said rightly, you know, with what happened after the match, the loss is forgotten. Like the match meant nothing. The loss is forgotten, and now it's like, Ricky, how dare you? How could you? So we've already kind of moved on with that. I guess between Punk and Ricky, there's nothing more to address with that. Punk's beat him clean, and he's went off and attacked Steamboat. Not to say that Steamboat and Starks are gonna have a match, but yeah, that's where we are with that. And obviously we saw on the show Samoa Joe called out CM Punk saying he wants his lick back. So that's probably the direction for All In. All Out is obviously still on the horizon, and MJF could come around, and yeah, that's probably what him and CM Punk are going to do at All Out, to decide who the real world champion is. I realized I said real, and I realized I'm actually talking about CM Punk's belt. So yeah, it's the real world champion. Yeah, but Starks, I guess I'm trying to think of who are some of the other kind of big faces that they've built up on Collision so far, and if it's not CM Punk, I guess it's FTR, and they're not singles guys. So I don't really know right now. It's not quite obvious where Starks go from here. But the one thing obviously with Starks is he on a bit of a legend killer vibe right now? Because we saw this disrespect to Steamboat. We saw the disrespect to Liger when he won the Owen tournament. So is there like some type of elder statesman, maybe a Goldberg?
Interesting.
That can come out and, you know, fight on behalf of these guys that is still somewhat active. Obviously, we know Goldberg's been angling and taking shots at WWE that he wants his retirement match. He's not done yet. They could bring him in. Collision looks like Nitro. They could bring him in for a one-off kind of thing with Starks, maybe at All In. Just a one-off match. Goldberg comes in, squashes Starks somewhat. I don't even know if that's productive, but the crowd would probably love it. Live crowd and that. It could happen, because why is he disrespecting these elder statesmen? There must be something at the end of it. There's gonna be one of them that can beat up Ricky Starks. So yeah. Interesting.
If this happens, I'm definitely playing this one back when Goldberg comes out.
Yeah.
Wow. Tony, are you watching? All right.
Yes.
What's nice about that whole point actually is the fact that, you know, there are still so many. I mean, I don't know how long it is until I can't remember how long it is until All In, but even
2-3 weeks.
Is it 3 weeks? Even afterwards, that could kind of carry on, because there are so many guys that are still kind of around in AEW who could kind of fit that bill. You've got Jake Roberts with Lance Archer. You've got Sting as well. Eventually, they've had
Sting could be the match.
Got history. They've got history as well.
That's
Sting could be the match. Yeah, you're right.
Very true. Very true. So that's a very interesting way to look at it. Definitely, indeed. It gives us something for Ricky to do that kind of makes sense. It kind of still elevates his whole heel thing, keeps it going. And also as well, it's one of those things where it can happen. And even if he is squashed by a Goldberg, for example, no one's making any fuss. For one, it's Goldberg. Goldberg's known for doing that exact same thing. We don't want a 15, 20-minute match with Goldberg. I tell you that. So that would almost be perfect, especially if it's a one-off, or it's he comes out the week before, challenges him, boom, we get a match. Or the better one would be Ricky Starks come out at All In, says there's no challengers, boom, Goldberg, bam, great. And the thing, and like I said, the thing with all of that is, once it's done, it's done. We can just throw it away. It doesn't really matter how many wins or losses or whatever else that he has. It's just this whole thing to then elevate this heel persona of Ricky Starks, and he moves on from there. Maybe even back to CM Punk if he still has this real world championship. So that's a great way to see it. Definitely. Just to move back a little bit as well, we're staying with AEW, but the other thing that we want to talk about. So a few weeks ago, we saw a one Swerve Strickland and his Mogul Embassy add another person to their group. that other person being AR Fox. Now, I haven't seen this actually play out week to week, so I had to kind of do a little bit of quick research to just double check on what's been going on. And of course, we've seen that they both men have attacked Nick Wayne and Darby Allin. A whole bunch of history in that alone. You've got Strickland with the history of Darby Allin before and during AEW. Nick Wayne, of course, is as close to Darby Allin as anyone, almost like his son. That's how close their relationship is. We've seen Nick Wayne versus Swerve, one in his debut on AEW, and for those who don't follow anything else, the matches that they've had on Defy, who are based in Washington, Seattle, yes. Washington, that is. Then we have the history that is Swerve and AR Fox, or better known back in the day on Lucha Underground as Killshot and Dante Fox. The matches they had, the Hand of War or whatever it was called, it was just crazy to me. The vignettes that they did, the lead up to that whole thing, just magnificent in every single way. To now see them do what they're doing now and be as brutal as their army characters from Lucha Underground is phenomenal. When AR Fox comes out with the bloodied shirt after bloodying up Nick Wayne. Mate,
bruv, when AR Fox pulled out a shank, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
Bro.
Right.
Max, just give us like kind of what's going on here, like this whole thing, the character of AR Fox and Swerve, and this whole thing with Darby and Wayne.
Yeah, I think it was really well done, and I was saying after I watched it, like this is what aesthetic wise, this is what Swerve like should be doing.
Yes.
Like, remember, I think I said some months ago, like I didn't necessarily understand you're using the Mogul Embassy and all these kind of suave sounding stuff, and you're dressing like a gangster rapper sort of thing. Like it's a bit of a disconnect. But now, like you've got someone next to you, like it's all fitting together. The name is still there, but aesthetically it looks proper now. Yeah. Not just some muscle guys behind you. Like it didn't ever connect. It didn't really make sense to me. I like these two. I like what they're doing. They're just being, ruffians. Like just out. I don't even know what to call them. Goons. Like they're just behaving in such a off script kind of way. The beating they put on Nick Wayne and his academy students in the Buddy Wayne academy in the ring, like crazy. Hit, smashed the picture with him and his dad and said, he's not here, and all of these kind of jibes and stuff like that. Like I said, he pulled out a knife. It was absolutely mental. But like, I don't think even for people, I saw him as Dante Fox in Lucha Underground, but other than that, I wouldn't say I was super familiar with his work. But this is like the best we're going to see of him character-wise, because we know AR Fox and his ability is stupid. But like now he's got somewhat of a character to go alongside it. And like you said, they're in cahoots with Darby and Nick Wayne. They have been like joined at the hip for years. So this particular program is going to be fire once they get into it.
Gerard, what are your thoughts on this whole Mogul Embassy collaboration?
I think it's brilliant. We were talking at the top of the show about character changes needed for Bianca Belair because she was, seemingly just so happy and so nice. AR Fox, his story is inspirational. Here's a guy who's trained a ton of incredible wrestlers. He's been the guy behind a lot of the names you're seeing right now. And so for him to finally get his opportunity to be signed by a major wrestling company, that hasn't happened for him since, of course, Lucha. He spent time in Evolve and all these places. So while that story was wonderful and great, it was also painful then to watch this veteran keep getting beat, put in this great performances, these highlight reel moments, and then getting beat in match after match after match. AEW, Ring of Honor. I mean, what a nice gesture for him to have the first main event on the new Ring of Honor on Honor Club for the world title and then get beat, right? Then so he finally gets fed up after losing to Orange Cassidy. Says, I can't take it anymore. And then ends up beating down Darby Allin, joining with Swerve. It's almost just like, look, if I can't do it by myself, let me get with the baddest guy out here and let's do it together. And they don't claim to be friends, but it's just like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's what I'm going to do. I love this. And so I think people should be aware of some of the people that AR Fox has trained so that you realize how you're.
I was going to the same tree. Go for it.
He has a school here in Atlanta called WWA 4. And I mean, the list of people, you're talking Alan Angels, Austin Theory, Jade Cargill has come through there. AC Mack has come through there. The captain, Sean Dean, like that's just a small list. He's trained so many names. Go ahead.
Jonathan Gresham.
That name. Yep.
Moose.
That name.
There are so many. There are so many more. It's crazy. Kiera Hogan.
Yes.
Another one.
Here's what's so interesting. I mean, here in Atlanta, we are blessed to have so many great schools. You've got the Nightmare Factory and WWA 4 both here in Atlanta. So I mean, add Darby Allin to that list, right? Like all of these names that AR Fox has trained. So if he trained them, he has to be amazing. So it's that brutal space of, man, if you're a song, I wrote all the songs, but you won't let me record them. All y'all got rich and nobody knows who I am. No, it's time for somebody to know who he is. And so he's taking it out. I love this. I hope that this really gives AR Fox the spotlight that he deserves. And who knows? What if this at some point turns into Swerve and Fox as tag team champions? I would love every bit of this. It'd be great.
I don't, I see that as a strong possibility. And you mentioned, AR Fox being finally signed to a big company. I read literally minutes before we came on air that there's an article that's been put out about probably a few hours ago, earlier today, with AR Fox talking about him expecting or thinking he was going to be signed to WWE, because you had Swerve on NXT. You had the whole thing with WWE and Evolve, of course. He was heavily involved with Evolve. And not just as a wrestler, he was, backstage, all the rest of it, kind of the goings on and all of that as well. Obviously, that whole thing with Evolve kind of fizzled out, and he's now he went back into the wilderness, so to speak. And now he's back and he's in AEW. I was very excited when he first signed for AEW. I was like, finally, someone's picked up this guy. But at the same time, my thinking was, right, is it now too late? Are we doing this a little bit too late? So for those first few weeks, I was kind of like, oh, yeah. Because he's putting, it was very similar to when Jay Lethal signed. I remember me and Mex having the conversation when Jay Lethal signed. And we were like, right, this guy is here just to put other people over. And that's exactly how I felt when AR Fox was signed. Now, given that he's got this new character change and he's doing what he's doing, and the brutality that we're seeing, and this off-script kind of approach to what's going on, I'm now excited again to see what AR Fox will do or can do, and the possibilities that are there. And a tag team championship would be great. The characters that, as I said, the characters that they're playing, very similar to how how most of us were introduced to both guys in Lucha Underground. So yeah, it should be very, very interesting. I know time has gone, but I want to say this real quick. Let's get to this real quick. I don't know why we didn't talk about it earlier. Ricochet and Logan Paul. I'll give it to Gerard to talk about this real quick, and then we'll move.
Well, it's I think we correctly predicted that it should have been the match to open SummerSlam, and it did. Sure. I thought that it was a really solid showing for both guys. I actually thought the ending made sense. Logan Paul doesn't have a win in 2023. Yes. So at some point he needed to get a win. I think it was right for him to get the win over Ricochet. I'm not fully sure what it does for Ricochet. I mean, he ended up in a four-way match last night that didn't exactly work out well for him. But I think for Logan, it was a great moment. For Ricochet, it's a great moment as well. I mean, to open up SummerSlam in a high-profile match, that's absolutely something that you want. So kudos to him.
I think it worked out in that reason, and worked out in the way that they intended it to, in a simple sense of Logan winning, Ricochet getting some kind of push, getting the rub and stuff like that. And then, it's a high-profile match. We've heard the numbers in terms of like the views and stuff like that. Max, give us quickly your thought on this whole thing.
Solid match, uneventful. 4 out of 10. I think they promised viral moments. I don't remember anything that was necessarily viral. So the objective was failed. So
yeah, that is the problem. I'll quickly say that's the problem with over promising and under delivering. It's like a couple of years ago when they had Edge versus Randy Orton and they were billing it the greatest match of all time. How do you assign that to something that hasn't happened yet? And so here was a moment we all sat there waiting. What's the viral moment? Instead of waiting for the great match, we didn't get the great match or the viral moment, right? So it was an average match. I mean, if you're talking about viral, him and Will Ospreay, way more viral, right? But that's the deal, and I think that's the issue with over promising. And yeah, they're paying for it, I think.
I think the other issue obviously is the fact that Logan Paul, as great as he has been and is in terms of how long he's been around, probably you can't put that much pressure on him to do spectacular stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that they did in the match was good. For example, like when Logan Paul did the moonsault and then turned it into the DDT and whatever, but it was still. Even for me, even with Logan Paul being as new as he is, there was actually so much more I believe they could have done or we expected them to do.
I won't say he phoned it in because Logan Paul is spectacular for where he's come from. Right. But obviously he knew he had to get on a plane to go watch his brother box minutes after.
Exactly.
And you're not trying to do that with an ice pack or on crutches or anything like that.
Exactly that.
I wouldn't say he phoned it in, but they just knew they had to deliver this match and get out of there.
Yeah.
That's what we got.
That kind of tarnished the match, and it did what it did. Arguable. We should have talked about this at the start.
I don't know,
guys. I just completely forgot. I don't know. Wow, that tells you everything. On that note, guys, you have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and be notified of when we are live every Tuesday. And also when this guy Mex puts out all his posts and reactions on WWE and AEW. Also, you can follow, you can see Mex on the Wrestling's channel as well on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow the man them. You can follow Mex on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube, on the WrestleManiac UK Instagram, WrestleManiac.UK on X, Twitter, Elon Musk's page, whatever you want to call it. You can follow this guy, Gerard Bonner, on everything Bonafide. Also, the Faction Show, Nightmare Factory, Southern Honor Wrestling, WWT Live, and all the rest of the places, Battle Slam, and all the rest of the places that he appears in, just everywhere. You can follow me, A Dazzle on Black Wrist Alliance on Instagram, and BWA Dazzle on Elon Musk's page. That has been our time. We will see you again next week.
See you later, guys.